The National Association of Realtors lawsuit settlement. First of all, what is it? Secondly, how is it going to impact you, whether you're in the market or not in the market, or maybe coming into the market, whether you're a seller or a buyer or an agent? This is going to affect everyone. So please stay tuned to some insights into the National Association of Realtors settlement. So by now you've likely heard of the National Association of Realtors lawsuit, NAR for short. And I'm here to explain kind of what it is and what it means or might mean for the marketplace, buyers, sellers, and agents, and the like. So essentially, there was a $418 million settlement. It still has to be approved by the courts, effective as we're standing here, March 19th, 2024. It seems to be that it will pass, and it's just a formality to be approved officially by the courts. That's sort of what I'm hearing. But who are the actual winners in the lawsuit? If you think it's the sellers that were privy or party to the lawsuit are going to get pennies on the dollar. The plaintiffs' attorneys are the real winners here, because they won, and the National Association of Realtors settled. So in the settlement, there were a couple of very, very critical pieces, two of which I'll talk about right now. Number one, they stipulated that we can no longer itemize the buyer's agent commission in the MLS. So let me just break it down for the public, because I don't know that everybody fully understands. Because in real estate, as a realtor, this is like normal practice for 22 years that I've been doing this. So when I go and a buyer says, okay, let's look at property, I can pull up any property, and in the private agent side, I can see what I'll get paid. Typically it's 3%. That was what the lawsuit was over, right? Because they felt like there was collusion in the marketplace, that you had to pay 3% on one side and 3% on the other, for a total of 6%. As an aside, there's always been competition in the market, right? So there's never been a mandate that people had to pay that. But nonetheless, they settled, and that's what we're talking about. So we can no longer see what we're getting paid. Okay, and I'm going to get back to that. Number two, if I'm working with a buyer, I now will have to work with them in the formality of having a written agreement. It's called the buyer-broker agreement. Again, this is not a new thing. Agents have been using a buyer-broker agreement for many, many years here in the local market and in other markets. So it's nothing new. Number one thing that's not new is competition in the market. You can call, and you've always been able to call, a flat rate agent. You can call, and you've always been able to call, a listing agent, listing agent, listing agent. None of that's changed. So you've always had the chance to do that. That is not changed, and that will continue to be an option. Okay, so the buyer-broker agreement. So if you think about it, if you sit down with a seller and you have a seller sign a listing agreement to promise to work with you, and I promise to do my job and you promise to stick with me, it does make sense that we would do the same with the buyer. I mean, it's professional, and it exudes professionalism, and now we're just going to be mandated to do that. So the last item in the lawsuit stipulated that these changes are to be taken into effect in July. Some sources have said July 1st, some have said middle of July. I don't know if the truth is somewhere in the middle, because I haven't read the lawsuit. I don't plan to read the lawsuit. I just, on a need-to-know basis, I have enough to do with these videos and working with all you fine people, but it's somewhere in the middle there, right? It might be July 1st, so I guess we're prepping for the first part of July. So let's first address our sellers. So it seems to be the consensus so far is that the sellers are going to benefit the most in the onset. Now, if the seller becomes a buyer, that's a different story, which we will get to. So sellers, again, there's never been a monopoly on the 6% commission, right? But it's like you say buyer beware, now seller beware. So agents are probably going to be calling the listing agents saying, do you offer commission? And if so, what is that commission? 90% of buyers are going to have realtors. And those realtors are not going to work for this. So imagine going to a job and not knowing what you're going to get paid or thinking it's going to be zero. Nobody works for free. So if 90% of the buyers have an agent and the seller's offering zero, if that realtor is a high value, high experience, good quality, strong negotiating realtor, they're probably going to ask for the commission anyway in the deal, which you can. You can negotiate your commission in the transaction. That's always been the case. I've done it many, many times myself. So it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to pay less. Now, a seller could say no, pound sand. They could say, okay, here's 1%, and then your buyer can make up the other part. They could say any variation thereof. So sellers, you're not off the hook, but we're going to see like, how this is all going to play out. If you still offer the 3% on the buyer side, I think it's a win. My thoughts are, what if you do offer zero and that agent, the buyer's agent, decides not to show up because of that, because maybe they don't have a strong buyer broker agreement. Maybe their buyer's only willing to pay up to 2%. So it's going to be really interesting to see if showings go down if you're not willing to compensate the buyer's agent. These are all just X factors that we just don't. What we do know is that we can offer in the MLS a seller credit or repair limit for the buyers. So there is a line item, or will be a line item, to be able to offer that. The other thing is we can offer commissions if it's an off-market property. So I can offer commissions if it's not even in the MLS. I think a coming soon property too. I'm not too sure on that. But off-market, we can offer commissions. Same thing with new construction, because they're not part of the National Association of Realtors. They can also offer commissions, bonuses, and things of that nature. Again, sellers, think about this. It is going to be even more important that you hire an agent who has a really, really high market share presence and a high market share office and company. And why in the heck would that be important? Well, think about it from the example of the off-market situation. If we're going to offer it off market, we can offer the commission 6% or 3%, whatever, the sliding scale. It could be a number of different percentages. I just say 6% because I'm so used to it. And if I have the highest market share company in town, which I do, we're at Coldwell Banker Global Luxury, the highest market share in Sarasota, Florida, then it's a benefit to the seller, because why? You're going to have the best and biggest exposure. And secondarily to that, to market share, is of course marketing and advertising, right? So if you find an agent that is with an office with the highest market share and they do exceptional marketing and advertising, to me, that's only going to get you the exposure that you need, the agents who have the right buyers. And even if you do pay the 3% and the 3%, by having a quality realtor, trust me, they will bring a high quality buyer, and it will more than make up generally for that 3%. And don't you at the end of the day want to know that you have a really experienced agent? Because we do this every single day. It's like you walking into court without an attorney. Do you really not want representation? This is a time in history too where there is information galore. There's more information accessible to the public than ever before. And even so, despite that, the data shows that most people, 90% of people, choose to work with a realtor. And some people, I think what will probably happen is they'll probably try to get away with not having a realtor, and they might have some great experiences, but it might just take the one bad experience to say, I'm never doing that again. I lost a bunch of money. And and then you have a great agent who really is a strong negotiator, knows what they're doing, and can fight for you and fight for your bottom line. So at the end, it will definitely behoove you to have a high quality, highly communicative, high value realtor in your corner. Just like if you were to go to court. I'm not saying we're attorneys, but like attorneys, we do represent you and your best interest. All right, my buyers. All right, buckle up. Buckle up, Buttercup. So, all right. This is what's going to happen for the buyers because the buyer broker agreements are now a requirement. And actually, I'm pretty excited about it. I look at what I do as a profession. This is a business. I have systems. I'm very organized. Everything I do is a system, okay? And it's organized chaos, okay? And we take a lot of that burden away from you as the buyer. But let me just say that I hope that you're not confused. And if you are, you can call me because we want to remove a lot of that confusion from the consumer. Now, you've always had a lot of choices. You've always been able to go from listing agent to listing agent to listing agent. Okay, that's always been a choice. And I think there are going to be certain buyers that just do that. So you can do that. Just know that it's a lot of work. um, it's a tremendous amount of work, number one. Number two, and probably more importantly, the listing agent represents the seller and the seller's best interest. Again, it's like going into court without an attorney. Do you really want to spend usually the most money that you would on an asset in your lifetime without having representation? And I mean, I liken that to being sued. Do you want to represent? You want to stand up as your own attorney in court? It's a big, big risk. I think that we present a lot of value to the public, and it shows in the data that most people do hire a realtor. 90% of the buyers have a realtor, right? And with all the data out there, they're still being hired. And with a high inventory level compared to the demand right now, it's going to be even more critical to have that market share, have that marketing and advertising, that reach, rather than for sale by owner, right? The for sale by owners are really going to struggle, I think, in all of this. But you know what? If you're thinking of for sale by owner, call me. I can help you. All right. Number two, for buyers, you're going to be required to sign a buyer broker agreement. Now, in this process, what I would think would be the most professional route would be to do a few things. Sit down directly face to face with your realtor. And if you can't do that, definitely do a Zoom with you and your spouse or whoever the decision makers are. I think it's important that if you could sit down, look eye to eye to your agent, feel good about who you're working with, know, like, and trust your realtor, know and understand, a sense of how they operate as a realtor, what they're going to do for you, what their experience is in working with buyers, like what does their resume look like, and sitting down with them and showcasing your value. What is your value proposition, and why would this buyer trust and want to work with you? In the buyer broker agreement, so our buyer broker agreement does state, and most of them will state, that essentially if the seller is not paying any commission, you agree to pay this percentage up to this percentage, no more than that percentage at the closing table. So all of these years, buyers have been able to just walk in and, not have to pay out of their pocket. Well, I'm not saying you're going to have to pay out of your pocket, but you would have to cough some of that up if there's no seller commission, right? Now, here's a caveat. I personally plan to write it into the negotiation to actually ask the seller to pay it, right? But if I'm representing the seller, I'm going to fight against that, right? So it depends on which side I'm on. I'm going to fight either way. If you're my client, I'm a fighter either way. Now, in Florida, we are transaction brokers. So when you sign either a buyer broker agreement or a listing agreement, we are transaction brokers. So what does that mean? That means that I can represent the transaction, and I have a fiduciary duty still to both parties with limited confidentiality and things of that nature on both sides. But I'm here to put the transaction together, right? And so it's not a dual transaction in Florida. It's completely legal. That is a little bit of a different case yet again, but the same principles still apply, right? So if I'm working both sides of the transaction, you still need to get paid for the seller side. You still need to get paid for the buyer side, right? And let me just add, there's always been, like I said, there's always been flat rates. There's always been like the discount agents. That's always been around, as have buyer broker agreements. This is not new. So this is just now being mandated. And I think that it's going to weed out the subpar, low value agents who just, all they have to offer is a discount, right? And so do you really want to, it's like it's like calling your plastic surgeon and going with the lowest rate. I mean, do you really want to do that? I don't know. But these are options, and these have always been options and will continue to be options for you. Now, still on the buyer's topic. So when you sign with an agent, the benefits, I feel like, are going to be even more with the change. Why? Because if you work with an agent like myself, for example, and I know that we both have a mutual agreement, I have the commitment from you, you have it from me, you're going to get so much more value from that realtor, because they don't have to chase their commission, right? They've already, okay, negotiated it. Now let me get to work for you, right? They would do, well, I'll speak for myself, do things like knocking on doors. Like, if I know that you really love an area, but there's just nothing on the market right now, I will literally go and knock on doors. Okay. I know how to have the conversations. I'm friendly, I'm approachable, and I have the grit, tenacity. I know where to go. I know this market. I know the neighborhoods. So, and I have the market knowledge. Those are things that you're not going to get from most people. You're also going to get, if you have that exclusivity with a realtor, you're going to get other benefits like the coming soon, off market. There's a lot of buzz in the office. And when you have a high market share office, from office meetings to all of our platforms within the company, I mean, there's so much insight that's incredibly valuable, both from the buyer side and the seller side. So I'm excited, actually. The more that I think about this and the more that I talk through it with colleagues and other professionals and just people in the marketplace, the more I get excited. I think this could be a very, very overdue change for the public. Not for the public, really, more for realtors, and separating the men from the boys. I don't know if that's the best analogy, but you know, I think that it will set the tone of some professionalism, especially for like the top agents in their local markets. I think it's a professional thing that you would go with a buyer broker agreement. I think that it's going to be a good thing. All right, my fellow realtors, I'm talking to you. So, did you know in 2023 that half of the realtors sold between 0 and 2 homes? I'm sorry to say, but this kind of a major disruption, shakeup in the market might eliminate you, unless you're just doing this for fun and don't need the money to live on. I think it will weed people out. I think it kind of forces that in a marketplace of a change of this nature and of this magnitude. I think agents also, we as realtors, have always needed to educate the public and our clients, but now it's going to be even more important, because I think, early on, I think there's going to be confusion with everybody at first. I think it's just like growing pains and kind of settling into the new norm, I guess you could say. And we do have some time from now until July, but I feel like people are already going to start to implement some of these things. Even though a lot of the companies, the big box companies, are saying they no changes until and unless someone wants to negotiate current listings or current contracts. But other than that, it's going to be business as usual until it's necessary. So, what I do think too is the bigger box companies like Coldwell Banker, Keller Williams, and the like, those are places that you're probably going to want to be as agents, because the market share is really, really going to matter. I mean, if you're like a flat rate kind of an agent, or that type of like a lower percentage, like, it might not matter to you as much because you don't need that overhead. But honestly, the way that I do business and the way that I want to capture the certain clientele that I enjoy and like to work with, I think that bigger name is really, really going to matter, and it's really going to impact those clients. So, there's a saying in the real estate business, If you control the listings, you control the market. And I think that's going to be very much the case, even more so going into the future. And buyers, like, well, agents that have not worked with buyers agent agreements in the past will maybe potentially struggle a little bit. I'm seeing a lot of classes coming up, and I think that's great. And I think that the top agents are only going to not only survive, but thrive and just pivot. This is just like another pivot. I swear, if it's not a hurricane rolling through or red tide or who knows, a sinkhole, I mean, geez Louise, like we've had to go with COVID. We've had to pivot so much throughout the years. And if you're an oldie like me, you've been through the ringer on so many different things just that have changed the world and changed the real estate landscape. And so it's just like one more thing that we have to learn and pivot to. And honestly, I think it's, like I said, I think it's going to be a little exciting, and change can be stressful, but it can be good as well. And like I said, I think that it's going to be important for agents to hone in their skill sets, make sure you know how to show your value to your clients, and bring forth the communication that they so need and deserve, and exude professionalism and exude grit that I know that you have. It's going to be the things, these are going to be the things that will set you apart now and going forward, and have helped me throughout the years. All right, as I kind of wrap up and just thinking about all of these things since last Friday as this breaking news, that, I think that agents, well, the public doesn't understand necessarily how much we do work and not get paid. So, for example, we're in kind of the spring break season here, and I mean, people are in town visiting, and they're kind of like, oh, I'm in town for a week, let's go look at property, with no intention of buying. And so that agent went and took a lot of care, diligence, time on the phone, in the car, paying gas, and being away from their families when they could be on spring break, and you never end up buying. I mean, that's incredibly frustrating. And so by having a buyer broker agreement, I think it sets the tone, and it's going to eliminate the people that never intended on buying with you to begin with. I mean, that's not cool, or they go to and find an open house, and then they buy from just a random open house when you spent all the time with them educating and showing them around. I mean, it's incredibly frustrating. So from that standpoint, as a realtor, I think this is going to be a really, really positive thing. So the takeaways would be that. Another takeaway, if you're a consumer, whether you're a buyer or seller, ask your agent for their resume. Ask them for their CV. Like, I personally have a 45-page CV, and there's a lot of information in there. It's very interactive, and it showcases what I've done, who I am, how I'm different, and a plethora of other things that I give my clients that other agents potentially don't, and that my company provides. And together we marry like this wonderful situation that gives you the best opportunity, whether you're selling your home, or the best opportunity to find you a home in no matter the market. I think that's going to be really important. And any of you out there, reach out to me. I will send you my CV. I don't share that with competing realtors. I will share that with certain realtors in my referral partner network outside of my state. But if you're a potential seller, if you're a potential buyer, every single one of you, you will get my CV proudly. I'm really proud of it. I keep it updated every single year, and it's just got a lot of rich content in there. And please, please, please ask me for it. I love sharing it. So ask yourself, who do you want to represent you in court, right? That's rhetorical, because again, we are not attorneys. And I guess you should look to your agent to set the tone and expectations. What are you going to do for me? And okay, all of these things, what do you expect to get paid, right? And then compare apples to apples, and make sure that when you hire a realtor, you do compare apples to apples. I think this lawsuit, I think will will set the tone and set the bar to keep agents on their toes and keep them from being shady and unprofessional. So I think when this all shakes out, I think the cream, as they say, always rises to the top. And I want to hear from you. I want to hear your opinions. I want to hear your questions. We're all kind of going through this together. We're all going to be affected by these changes in the marketplace. And, you know, I'm here for you. I am here as your guide since 2002. I'm not going anywhere. I work from Anna Maria all the way down to Manasota Key, all of Sarasota, Bradenton, Lakewood Ranch, down to Venice. It's a very, very large area. And listen, if you're not in my area and you want to buy in California or New York or somewhere else, I have an amazing referral network. I would rather you be very well taken care of in your market and I'm very well networked. First of all, I'm part of the Institute, which is the Certified Luxury Home Marketing Specialist program, where it's a members only group that has qualified and is a top 1% agent in their local market. And I make sure to send my clients to those type of high value realtors in their market so that I know that when you call me, you're very well taken care of, whether you're here in my market or another market. So I know this is a really long video, and if you've made it to the end, God bless you. But like I said, I do want to hear from you. You can call me 941-544-7690. If you prefer email, it's Shayla Twitt, SHAYLATWIT @gmail.com.